Hey team, Oska here and welcome back to another episode of our Run Spesh Podcast. This week, Tom and I catch up with Dougal Allan. Dougal personifies determination, relentlessness and compassion. He is able to be a fierce competitor while giving others the opportunities. An amazing father who has the ability and desire to not only show up for his kids but create memories and experiences they will cherish forever. He talks openly about his experiences growing up, how he let the flow of life lead him to what happens next, and his time racing, adventuring and being a Cyclor for Team New Zealand. But what stood out the most was his love and care for those around him. Conscious of the importance of the people he has in his corner and for the opportunities given. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Dougal has taught me so much, maybe even before I realised it was being taught. Hope he has the same impact on you. Dougal Allen, welcome to the Run Spesh Podcast.
Thanks, mate. I just came in to buy some shoes. You've sat me down.
Yeah, it's not every day that we get a profile of your case coming to buy some shoes, so we thought we'd take advantage.
I've just turned 40, so I was coming in to find some shoes that keep me going in old age.
We have to ask JC about that one. Tom and I aren't quite there yet.
Good to know.
Oh, I feel like I'm there though. My body feels like it's 40. It's not a good sign, eh? Yeah. So we're lucky enough to have Dougal Allan on the pod today. He is a 2 times coast to coast winner, 9 podiums. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ironman Xterra athlete, and more recently known as the Cyclor for Team NZ. So yeah, welcome. We haven't had an Xterra athlete on here yet. We haven't had an Ironman either. I was going to say we almost got Hayden on, but we haven't had that yet. So this is a lot of firsts today, which is awesome. Nor coast to coast either.
No.
Yeah.
This is the first multisport athlete, which I'm excited about.
Oh, well, we're ticking heaps of boxes.
Yeah. So should we just sign off now and call that a success? Yeah. We just go order a steak and another coffee and we'll be fine.
Oh, yeah. Now we're talking.
No. So the way we like to do things is we get in contact with people that we think will help us tell a genuine story about your life, not just focusing on the athletic achievements, although unbelievably impressive. But we like to, I guess, give a look into how you got where you were and the things that happened along the way to, I guess, give you, and in my opinion, you taught me lots of stuff, and we'll get into that as we kind of probably didn't even realise you were teaching me, and I didn't even probably realise that you were teaching me at the time, but there's lots of things. We'll get into that as the story kind of develops, but obviously everyone has to start somewhere. So your dad, David, has written me a thesis.
Fan of the shop too, I think.
Big fan of the shop. Yeah, he buys us one pair a year, of Saucony Omnis, 2E US size 10.
There you go.
But I asked him if he would share a little bit about you and then kind of help us get on our way of figuring out how does someone that starts so small end up with all those achievements and then helping Team New Zealand win the Emirates Cup. So I asked him, what was Dougal like as a kid? And you can see if you agree or disagree with what he says. Yeah. So he says, Dougal was outgoing, adventurous, liked to test boundaries, and a sought after friend by both genders.
I like how he's worded that.
Yeah, that's a great.
Test boundaries. Smoke cigarettes.
So yeah. so where did you grow up? What was primary school like? And how did you get going in sport?
Yeah, okay. Grew up in Foxton. And I'm not going to say where that is because if you don't know, you need to find out.
Great cafe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we drove through on our way to Raglan.
Okay.
And we had a phenomenal blueberry pie thing.
Good to know.
Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well, I don't think there were blueberry pies growing up. But, there was Foxton Fizz growing up.
Yeah, good.
That's all you need at that age. And yeah, I mean, I was just a typical country sort of kid, I suppose, in New Zealand, climbing trees, playing rugby, wrestling with the siblings in the backyard, going to the beach, finding pippies, boil those up, bit of vinegar, good to go. Kind of just life was very simple, and I don't think I would have wanted for anything different at the time, to be fair. I didn't know what multisport and triathlon were. I think it wasn't until I moved to Dunedin to go to university that I learnt that those sports existed. And so, yeah, it was just, as I say, riding my bike to get places, climbing trees, playing rugby, and, just being a kid.
Nice. So I asked him did he always have sporting talents, which can go two ways, because he might say he still doesn't have any, but he didn't. So he says, yes. And then a space, across a range of sport, including rugby, basketball, cricket, athletics, but noteworthy, not in capitals, swimming. Which is interesting, and we'll get to that. Took advantage of experiences like the Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon and the Colgate Games. The sheer range of these codes and his ability in each of them showed him to be a multi-talented sports person from a young age. In all cases, he had a skill of being thoughtful and strategic about the code, which developed into others looking for his leadership. Dougal also has a fierce loyalty where his efforts are directed to the success of the whole team. Sound sort of something like you?
I think so. Yeah.
So let's talk about rugby, because you were pretty big into that. Did you think if you were going to play a sport, that's where you would end up?
Absolutely. Yep. And I was going to the University of Otago regardless of what I studied, because in my mind, it was to play rugby for my favourite province, which was Otago. Loved my Josh Confelds and my Tane Randalls of the world. And rugby was a big part of my world, especially kind of in my later years at high school. Captain the first 15 and just lived for it, really. But in so doing, I suppose, without realising, I was just developing, a broad skill set and fitness qualities and leadership skills and things that obviously led into places outside of rugby. But I think rugby, for a lot of the qualities, I suppose, it kind of gave me at the time. And it also gave me a lot of concussions, which is why I had to stop playing rugby, which was disappointing at the time. But as that door closed, other doors opened, and that's sort of where things went.
So you finished up and you flew down to Dunedin basically on a whim, if I remember the story kind of correctly.
First time on an aeroplane, yeah. Dunedin.
It's the second time I've heard someone say that, but I think we've had this conversation before. But you get down there and you decide. Have you decided you're going to do exercise physiology? So you make those decisions here in Foxton, sorry?
Yeah, and I didn't get in. School of Physical Education, I think they took on 200 first-year students at a time, and I didn't make the cut. So I went down anyway and did a bridging year with the hope that I'd get in at the end of that first year, which is what eventuated. But, I mean, I take it for granted a little bit when I reflect, but at the time, that must have been a pretty big call. I'm sure it was, going to a new city, first time on an aeroplane.
How does that conversation go with your parents?
I think there was probably two things there. They supported whatever it was I wanted to do, and they also probably knew I was stubborn enough to do it anyway. So I think at the time I just had their blessings to go and see the world and make of it what I was choosing to do at the time, which was exactly that.
And how did you land on exercise phys? What was the...
For some reason, I wasn't the smartest teenage kid. I'm not the smartest adult. But at the time, I remember thinking, I don't know if I could have verbalized it at the time, but I knew innately that exercise made me feel a certain way, and it was a very good feeling that exercise gave me. And I also was aware that, like any part of New Zealand, but certainly in my town, there was a lot of examples of people that weren't healthy but could be if they did some more exercise. And so I think I just sort of thought, man, exercise is so good for this world. How do I develop a career that fosters people's ability to access exercise and understand how beneficial it is? So it sounds very philosophical now with another 25 years of life experience, but yeah, something inside me at the time just wanted me to get into that exercise space, and knowing how good it was for the world to be a leader in that industry.
And did you think that when you took that career pathway, you would then end up, I guess, being a broke multi-sporter?
No. I thought I was going to get a well-paying job. Yeah. And maybe one day I will. But no, and it's funny, and that's probably my life story, really, is the achievements I've had were never written on my wall as a kid, as a goal. I've never really been a goal setter, but somewhere along the way, just sort of showing up and doing things I was passionate about led to some pretty cool things. Yeah,
so I mean, there's lots of good words that I would use to describe you, but I asked David if he could maybe share one.
Well, he was an English teacher, so I'm looking forward to the word.
No, and I also told him I was dyslexic, so I had to be a word that I could read out loud. So he said, I basically, he said determination. And I said, what was his determination like? Like, what made you think of determination? And so he said, in one word, his determination was extraordinary. It is one of the first words that comes to mind when describing Dougal. From a young age, he has always had the ability to set a long-term goal, which you've just backtrack on, but maybe he could see something that you couldn't at the time. A long-term goal and put in place the steps to reach it. With Dougal, it has always been a quiet determination, with many unaware of the effort he was putting in to reach goals. An example of this was his determination to learn to swim to a standard necessary in triathlon. So, I think it's a pretty cool thing for your dad to say. What do you feel like determination would be the first thing you think of when you thought of yourself?
Possibly, like listening to that. And I can see what he means about, like I sort of just said, I was never a goal setter, but I suppose what I was and what he describes as being good at pursuing goals was someone who sort of knew a place that I wanted to get to. It wasn't ever a specific destination as such, but it was a general place that I wanted to get to. And I think I was always attracted to environments that rewarded consistency and someone that was willing to work hard. I think I was always aware that I didn't have special talents or anything that would predispose me to be really good at something, but I seem to have the ability to, and this is probably that word, determination, but the ability to just outwork the people around me. And so, I think when I think about going to university, as we've just described, or perhaps how I sort of found my way into multisport and the coast to coast and events like that, they're just places where hard work pays off. So, yeah.
So you finished university, and I mean, we don't have to tell the stories because we've talked about some of the many various long runs that we've been on together, and some of them probably aren't for for the podcast. But you had some fun. How do you land in Wanaka? What? So you choose not to go home to Foxton? How does that come about?
I finished my studies in Dunedin, and I stayed around for another year. I had a little personal training business at Moana Pool, and I just sort of got to a point where I thought, I'm not going to be young forever. So I think I went to Hamilton Island as a sea kayak guide for 6 months or something. And but before I left for Australia, I did the 2-day coast to coast, because back then you had to do the 2-day before you could do the 1-day, and I won the race. And it wasn't, and again, not a goal setter. I didn't go there to win it. I'm sure if you'd asked me at the time, I would have said it'd be nice to win it, and I'm going to try my best to win it, but I wouldn't have expected to win it. So then when I went away for 6 months, it was to kind of see the world and have an experience while I was still young, but I just couldn't look past the idea that maybe I had an ability to take my multisport career further. And so that's why I came back. And when I came back, I wasn't really sure where I'd land, and it was actually one of my really good friends at the time, still one of my good friends, one of my groomsmen, a guy, Timmy Holden, who was managing the swimming pool in Wanaka, who said, why don't you come to Wanaka? I'll give you a job. You're a terrible swimmer, but I'm sure you could save a life because you can, it's only shoulder depth. And what a great place to train for multisport. And it just made sense. And I thought, well, it's there for me to take it. Why not? And that's what happened.
I guess we're getting a little pattern of going with the flow.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, like kind of, there's an opportunity, see where it follows. Don't quite know where it's going to land, but it could be fun. And then, so that's where our lives kind of collided in a way. I met you lifeguarding at the pool. I didn't know you couldn't swim, so I don't know how I feel about that now. Neither can I, so I don't know. We've both gone down together.
You were a good swimmer. I remember that. I remember thinking, man, for a runner, he can swim.
Yeah. Nah. Not like the proper tri boys. And we shared lots of stuff together. You introduced me to my first coach out of high school, so Val Burke, that we shared coaching. I have this distinct memory of both of us trying to do the Les Mills Pilates. Oh, what was it? The stretching class up at the gym.
Body balance.
That's it, bro. If there's a camera in there, if that's now and we're getting filmed, this does not happen. No. Like we are cancelled.
I'm sure Val, our coach, was proud of us for some things, but range of motion was never one.
No, and she preached that so hard, and I felt so like we had to do better because she was so invested in it. Yeah. And my hips were fucked from the start. We just couldn't do it. And then we did some training together, and then we lived together for a bit. And then, you know, I guess, you know, you taught me, I think the biggest thing you taught me was this unbelievable discipline to commit every day. Like, I remember for the first 2 weeks that we lived together being so mad that the coffee machine would go off at 5 to 6 in the morning. Every fucking morning. And for the first 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, God damn it. Because our bedroom was right underneath the coffee machine. And I was thinking, like, the first 2 weeks, I'm like, bro, this guy's relentless. Like, and then like 2 weeks in, I'm like, well, why don't I just get up with him? Like,
there's a solution.
There's a solution. I'll just get up. And then, I guess like you had the degree in the study, and by then you'd kind of been doing your thing for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
kind of. By then, so you had some patterns in place of, I guess, stuff that you'd figured out what worked, what didn't work. You know, stuff to do and not do around eating and timing and so whatever. So that was the first thing, was just like the alarm goes off, you get up. That seemed to be, I don't know if that's what you did, but that was like the boom. No negotiation, because you were still working. So you had to be at the pool by like 12 or 11. Yeah. So, and you get like 5 hours of training. I don't think, did you ever get to work on time?
Yeah, I think so. Ish.
Ish. You and Tom might have that in common. No, so you have this unbelievable like relentlessness and sort of like discipline about getting up. And then you were so time poor that everything in the day had like this space that you had to achieve what you needed to achieve. And I found that, I think at the time, I think I was like 20 or 21. I think at the time I probably didn't recognize those patterns, but I picked up on them internally. And then as I got sort of 25, 26, 27, I went, geez, the amount Dougal could fit into a day was unbelievable. Like, I need to do better at managing my time. And I don't know if, you know, you picked up on that or whatever, but I think those two things were just crazy.
It's funny to think too that was before we even had kids. So now we're like, now we're going to make even better use of time.
And I guess what I gathered from you was like, I mean, the garage was a mess. It was an organised mess, but it was a mess. But you had this like unbelievable passion for kind of what you were doing. That's the only way I could figure out why you would get up at 5 to 6 every morning, train your ass off in the freezing cold for 4 hours on a bike, then come running with me because I've just sat around watching the Italian playing some PlayStation or whatever. I got nothing to do until you get back. And then I go for my hour and I'm like, I'm kind of tired now. Yeah. Like, and then you're going off to work, and then, you know, like it was, and then you'd come home from work at 3 or 4 or whatever, and then you'd be like, oh, we'll go for another run, or I got to go for a kayak in the freezing cold lake. That's impressive. Yeah. So then I asked your dad, what did you think when he told you he wanted to be a professional athlete? And he said, it felt like a natural progression, i.e. Dougal maximising his passion, but also the reflection of determination because of the challenges involved in such a venture. We don't recollect a particular moment when he told us. It sort of just developed over time as a natural consequence, which is kind of what I felt like being in that space with you, is like this natural sort of, you were just meant to be doing it. It was like, I don't know if you thought about all the things you were doing.
No, I think I was just following my passion. Like you say.
So it's just these crazy memories that I have as I kind of developed into my own athlete and figuring out kind of, you know, where we fit. But that brings us to Multisport and the coast to coast. So how did you land? Well, we talked about how you did the 2-day. When did you commit to, I want to win the 1 day?
Yeah, good question. I remember when I won the 2-day race, 2008, and then I hung around on the Saturday afternoon down at Sumner Beach, and I watched the 1-day race start to come in. Richard Usher won that year. He had the fastest run, bike and kayak. It was an unbelievable performance. But not just Richard, the whole sort of top 10 that came through, they were just on another level to what I just experienced in the 2-day race. So if you'd asked me at that moment, having just won the 2-day race, would you now like to go and win the 1-day race? I would probably have said there's absolutely no chance I'll ever be in the realm of these superhumans. I did go back the next year and do my first 1-day race, and I finished 8th, I think. And I remember finishing 8th, and it was the top 10 was quite prestigious, and on debut I thought, man, top 10, like I probably surprised myself a little bit, but that was probably a moment where I thought, hey, I'm actually somewhat in the same stratosphere. I probably was about 45 minutes to an hour off the person who won, Gordon Walker at the time, who later became my coach. But I sort of started to sense that I could belong in that group of giants. Yeah, and we're talking 2009. Didn't win it for another 10 years, and there's a story to tell there. But I think, to answer your question, 2009, first one-day coast-to-coast experience, finished 8th, and that was the moment where I thought, maybe I'm not quite so far off.
So you commit a decade of your life.
Yeah.
There's another theme here, it's determination.
Yeah.
I think your dad's bang on. So, I was a part of some of it, and then kind of we obviously left and you guys stayed. But the relentlessness of that determination to do 10 years to get a win, I mean, to me, that probably sums you up in a sentence, and we could have just said that at the top of the podcast and been done with it. But what was that like in every way?
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, physically?
I loved it because I've always just had a curiosity about what I can do, and the way to find out is to go about trying to do that. And so, I mean, I came second. So from 8th in 2009, I think I finished second, and third. And I was mixing it up. I was coming second to Richard Usher, and then it was Gordon Walker, and it was Braden Curry. And so I was, mixing up who I was coming second to, but I was losing the coast to coast every time I tried to win it. I didn't just keep banging my head against the wall. I actually, 2013, I think that was my 6th in a row. And I just went away from the sport and found Ironman. But I think I did that because I knew I needed to just go away and experience a bit of different style of racing, and then collect maybe a broader understanding and skill set, and then bring that back. So I didn't know when I would bring it back, but I think deep down I knew I would come back to the coast to coast, and that's exactly what I did in 2019 after about a 5-6 year hiatus, and managed to win it on that return, which probably says exactly what I'd sort of hoped might happen, which was get away from it for a moment, catch your breath, learn some new skills, develop different fitness qualities, and see where that brings you.
Over that 3 or 4 years, was there a time where you thought, I won't go back?
Yep. Ironman probably opened my eyes to a whole new world of...
You mean some cash?
Yeah. and a sport that exists further afield, eh? Like, yes, we get international athletes that come and do the coast to coast, but it's very much a Kiwi race, and Ironman's an international sport. So, yeah, I got to see the world and race world-class athletes that are fully professional in their pursuit, unlike the coast to coast. We're all sort of generally working day jobs and things. And yeah, it probably meant that for a while there, that was all I was ever going to do for the rest of my sporting career was Ironman. But yeah, it's funny how things sort of evolve.
Come round full circle. I have 2 memories of you and Ironman. One is watching you and Dill come down Golf Course Road.
Oh yes.
What year did you win?
2016.
So did he win the year after?
He won the year before.
So it must have been the year.
Yeah, that was an amazing race because Dylan was basically the best in the world as a swimmer in triathlon. And I think I had a world ranking at the time of number 2 in the world for cycling. So he put about 18 minutes onto me in the swim. I took back 18 minutes on the bike, and we started the run together, and he won. And he won by about 3 minutes. And I mean, we were pretty good friends at the time, but that day I think we became real good mates because we just had so much respect for each other and made a cool race.
As a fan of just sport, like obviously the friendship I had with you was I was rooting in your corner for the W, but obviously Dylan and I are friends too, but I was, so it was a Wanaka thing. And watching you guys fly, like, because we got the tracker on and you start 80 minutes down off the bike, or it was like 16 or 17, whatever it was, and you could kind of feel, those of us that knew you, we were like, this is good. like it's not 20. Like, because this is not 20. And then, but you kind of feel a little bit of the air go out of Pembroke Park. You can feel a little bit of like, oh, And was like, no, this is good. This is good. And then you get 45K and you go out to the ski field and come back, and then you end up around the back of Hawi, and the tracker, it's 14 minutes, it's 12 minutes, it's 8 minutes, it's 7 minutes, it's 6 minutes or whatever. And then we lose the tracker. Like, it stops working for a time as you guys must be on the back of Ballantine Road. It was Ballantine Road, wasn't it? Or, around the back when you come back from Hawi and you turn onto Golf Course Road, and then you go right down the hill and back into
something like that.
T2 or something.
Yeah.
This is 10 years ago. My memory's not that great. And we go, fuck, where is he? And like, I don't remember which order it came on, but it was like one of you came past and fucking hissing, like, because it's kind of downhill where we were. You were 60 something K now? I don't know, like just flying. And the next one came past, and then you could hear whoever was on the mic down in Pembroke Park go, like, he's caught him. And the whole of Wanaka just goes, like, what does that feel like? Oh, you get off the bike and
you feel it.
Yeah.
You totally feel it. And maybe that's what brought me back the next year when I did manage to win it. But yeah, you certainly feel it. And to be fair too, like, Dill had a real backing from the crowds as well. Like, he did a lot for Wanaka and in Wanaka, but he didn't live in Wanaka.
Yeah,
my postal address was Wanaka, so I had a little bit more.
And then it was kind of like the first time you had a real good crack at. Do you teach yourself to swim? Your dad says you could not swim.
No, I was a terrible swimmer.
I feel that.
So now I'm asking advice for Tom.
Yeah. I think, and it's something I try and talk about with the younger athletes, is just to have that growth mindset. Like, be interested in, don't be, frightened by the idea that there could be a lot of work involved in getting good at something. Yeah. And I mean, without sounding arrogant, I had an established reputation as a good multisport athlete. So I was willing to risk that reputation to start to learn to swim and look terrible at doing so. But again, I thought, well, I was curious. I thought, well, what happens if I do put the time and the effort into improving my swim? And it took time. My first 2 Challenge Wanaka swim times were 1 hour and 3 minutes, which even an age grouper would probably say is pretty hopeless. And I was trying to race as a professional. But that year that Dylan and I came off the bike together and he won, to the next year, I think I took my swim time from a 103 down to a 54. And to anyone that has experienced swimming in the past, they know, like, 9 minutes off a 3.8k swim is huge, like almost unheard of kind of thing. But that was off the back of a few years of toil. And I had a swim coach, a guy, Jeremy Duncan from Invercargill, who was tied in with Val, my main coach at the time. And we just did the work, 25, 30k swim weeks. And even just, I remember one thing with Jeremy, he understands the sport of swimming really well, but he was so good at the psyche behind. It's so easy as a poor swimmer to be distracted by the losses that are taking place when you're in the water. He was so good at hammering me with that ability to just immerse my thoughts into the process. Just focus on your stroke. Don't think about those guys, because they'll be swimming away from you. But he taught me a lot about being really process driven in the moment, which is, it's easy to say, it's very hard to actually execute in the heat of battle. And that was something he taught me, which helped.
And what lots of people won't know is Wanaka only had a 25-metre pool with like 6 lanes. 6 lanes, and it wasn't very deep. And then there was a period of time there where it was closed, and we were carpooling to Cromwell.
Yeah, that's right.
To use the pool. So again, it's a comeback to that, like, sheer determination to find a way.
Yeah.
And there was a group, like Marion and some others.
That's right. That's right.
It'd be like 5:30 in the morning. Someone would drive around everyone, or you'd meet at the top of the roundabout. And if you wanted to go if you drive 40 minutes there, do your hour and a half in the pool. For me, it was 40 minutes, and I'd sit on the side with a chocolate bar. And then, I think I was injured at the time, and that's why I was coming back.
I was going to say, why were you swimming with us? No,
I was injured at the time. And like people didn't see, like, Wanaka was this amazing place, but it had its shortcomings, right? We kind of found that out. No track, only a small swimming pool that was often used 5 lanes with the kids and stuff, which was great, but it was like these kind of limitations of the environment we found ourselves in terms of professionalism, I guess. But I'm going to backtrack us slightly, because you had to find a way to pay for multisport. And one of those ways was leveraging your body to stay awake for a week and going and doing like multi-day, multi-stage adventure racing. So, which to me, I still don't understand.
Not sure any of us do.
No. So maybe for people who don't know what that is, explain it, because it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and adventure racing is, to me, it's the team version of multisport. So 4-person teams generally, traditionally 1 female, 3 males, and you can kind of split it into 2 categories. You've got stage racing, which you do get to sleep at night, get up the next day and race hard, or you've got expedition racing, which is the non-stop format, can take up to sort of a week at times. And so, I was doing a bit of that, and part of it was to help fund the habit. We'd go to China and would race for 4 days in China, sometimes with a bit of sickness involved, as happens in China. And it was just such a high-level, competitive, hard racing environment. And my teammate at the time, Braden Curry, he and I still credit it with giving us so much more ability to come back to, for him it was Ironman, for me it sort of was more, Ironman then multisport, but be so much stronger and better because we were slogging ourselves in China. But I was pretty fortunate. I got to travel to places like Abu Dhabi, run across the desert there and kayak and mountain bike, and went to Brazil and raced with Seagate, who at the time were the world champions, and incredible experiences. Would I do it again? Probably not in a hurry, but it was, I would, it was a shift in perspective because, and I was racing Ironman as well at the time, and when you're in an Ironman situation, standing on the start line with your fellow professional competitors, they're looking at this as their big day, like 8-9 hour day, and that's daunting. And if you've come away from a 127 hour race, you're looking at that as, I get to wake up in a nice comfy bed, go and do a race for 8 or 9 hours, get it done, have some afternoon tea, like that's a sprint almost. It just shifted my perspective, which I think is pretty powerful.
So I have one memory. Well, I have lots of memories, but I have one particular memory, and I think you'd just come back from Brazil. And I don't remember how it went, but you were pretty beat up. I think you might have lost some skin on the back of your back from the kayak maybe, and you were cold sores all over you. Yeah, it's not good. If anyone is thinking of taking the sport up, talk to Dougal about it. So we're sitting at the table across from each other, and remember we had that George Foreman steamer?
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that thing.
Yeah, it was good. It was like 3 layers, eh? And you could put like veggies and fish in it. Yeah, so now he's talking. And a trip down memory lane as well. So you've just come back. I've also never met a man who can eat a whole block of cheese in one sitting. That's fucking outrageous. That is outrageous.
One of my many.
I can't do cheese.
No, a block of cheese.
Holy
But a block of cheese. And you couldn't afford it now. Back then it was
It's a
$7.
$20 snack.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're sitting across the table. You've just come back from Brazil. I think it's like night 1. Like you've just come back, and we're like having a conversation, was yarning back and forth across the table, and then just the lights go out, and you just bang. And I'm like, Dougie, you're like, no. And there's nothing. Sure, you're still holding a knife and fork. Like, did you know, I guess, jokes aside, kind of what was happening to your body?
No. Sometimes you try and block it out, don't you? Yeah. There was probably a bit of jet lag involved there too, to be fair. But I mean, it's probably not the most healthy sport to choose. I remember even the more recent one I did, the God Zone in Rotorua in 2021, I think it was. That's the last time I did an expedition race like that. And even then I remember just being so excited to spend the next week sleeping, and you can't sleep. You're like full body sweats, like, as you say, cold sores, ulcers all over your mouth, and your body's so confused that it's as tired as it's ever been and incapable of sleep. You're as hungry as you've ever been, and you're incapable of eating, and it's just a twisted existence for a while. And then you sort of come out of that traumatic cave and start looking for the next race.
You're like, I'm going to
I will never complain about running a marathon ever again. So I had a chat to your friend Simone Mayer, who we both know Simone. Simone is probably the most energetic person I've ever met outside of myself. Or just she's got more energy than I've got.
You guys are first equal.
Yeah, like her. I mean, she's got an amazing story herself and a phenomenal athlete in her own right. But she asked me, I asked her some questions that I should ask you. And then she wrote a little bit about you. But she said, so God's Own, and you're with Richie McCaw. What song are you guys singing in the trekking section for what must have seemed like a day?
That's a great question. And you know what? I can't remember because I was probably, unlike Simone, tired and not fully comprehending my surroundings. And she would have been good to go.
So she said that you and Richie McCaw, arguably... Yeah.
Is it the Wiggles?
Yeah.
Yes, it was too.
So we've got like arguably one of our top ever multisport athletes and then our greatest ever rugby player in a team together, walking and cycling and rafting or whatever else you guys are doing, rock climbing. There was one year you had to learn to rollerblade.
That's right. Yeah. We don't talk about it.
No, we don't talk about it. That was up on the driveway. You were trying to learn to we were trying to.
Oh.
We sucked.
Oh, yeah. Better than me.
So, I mean, first of all, what's the experience like? I guess you've probably talked about this a million times, but being in a team with Richie, having that experience, and then what is it like being so engulfed and fatigued that you find yourself with the greatest rugby player ever to play the game, singing the Wiggles in the middle of a trek in a multi-stage event?
Yeah. I tell you what, I think, and I can't, well, I will speak on their behalf, but I think Simone and Richie would have both taken so much from that race experience from one another.
Gotcha.
Because Simone is one of our greatest ever adventure racing athletes. Richie, as you say, greatest ever rugby player. Simone didn't know much about Richie. Richie probably didn't know a huge amount about Simone. But they spent a week basically just teaching each other so much, and I was sort of privy to it along the way. But Simone's just so damn tough, and I do remember her telling Richie off at one stage because he was trying to put another layer of strapping tape around some festering blister on his foot that looked bloody painful, which didn't impress Simone much, so he told him to get a move on. But Richie's one of those people who would just love that sort of situation, and I think, yeah, he would have just loved being around such a tough competitor like Simone, who, as I say, top of her game in that sport. But Simone probably spent the week sort of realising that this guy Richie, that everyone else seems to know a lot about, is also just an incredibly tough character. And while he was the least experienced adventure racer in our team of four, he brought so much in the way of, you know, that mental toughness and the leadership side, and he was just, an incredible brain to be around. And the poor guy, we sort of hammered him with questions for a week as we tried to entertain our sleep-deprived brains. But just it was an amazing experience is what I'm trying to say.
Unreal. So then I got Simone to, we'll wrap this part of the story up and then we'll move on to the Team New Zealand stuff. But
okay.
So we'll see ourselves out of this part of the story with this comment from Simone, which is, as you can tell, full of emojis.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever met Simone, Tom, she's like 5 foot on a good day. It is an absolute pocket rocket of energy. And I've never met anyone so happy to see anyone.
Yeah.
If I was going to remember...
I
don't think so.
She's in the shop.
No. Oh, maybe at some point earlier on, but yeah, would you say, like, she's just so happy to see anyone and talk to anyone, and it's just this infectious energy about her. Yeah. Anyway, so he's an exceptional athlete, one of a kind, also an incredible sportsman and human being. The world needs more of him. One of the best teammates I've ever raced with, and that's not because he's Dougal Allen. It's because he's a really, really good team player. He looks after everyone, and he would give his little finger to save the team than himself, if that makes sense. He doesn't save much for himself and gives a lot in every kind of physically and mentally. He's also a great pack horse. And still keeps charging along. Lots of wind emojis. He's kind and caring, and believe it or not, I have only seen him once getting close to losing his shit.
I wonder where that was.
So I think there's some pretty kind words to leave that part.
Praise.
And then so we move from there. In your Ironman stuff, you go back and you win coast to coast. We'll come back and maybe touch on the family and the kids stuff after we've done this. But an amazing photo of you and the kids, you know, you winning that trophy, kids.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Yeah, that was unbelievable because you sort of, and you guys know this, you it's such a journey for any event, And on the day, you just hope, because you know it's not a guarantee, but you just so hope that you can sort of cap it off with success. And I hadn't managed to do that in 6 or 7 attempts, whatever it was. And I just remember crossing the line and the relief that this time I got to have the cherry on the cake. And the coast-to-coast finish line's a pretty special place. And, it's not often as a multisport athlete you get to feel like a bit of a superstar, but on the sand at New Brighton, you actually do feel like a bit of a superstar. It's incredible how Christchurch gets in behind the event on a Saturday afternoon in February each year. But anyway, crossed the finish line, and it was a pretty exciting moment, but it was just so cool, because Flynn and Till, they were, I think, 4 and 2 maybe at the time. And I just remember thinking, like, you've got a whole life ahead of you, and hopefully I'm around for a while, but what I want you to hopefully see in the future is a photo of this moment, and a photo of Daddy trying to do something that he couldn't do for a long time and had finally managed to do. And yeah, there is a photo of, I think I've got one in each arm, probably getting cramp in my shoulders by that point, but I'm so glad that photo exists. Yeah, it's a real moment.
And I think it's an iconic photo, because I know you and I have so much care, but also if you didn't know who you were in that moment, it's like you doing it, and the 2 kids, there's a photo of Alex Yee and Haydo sitting like this at staring back at the Olympic, and I put that photo on the same sort of, like, it's different, but it probably means the same, because it's a culmination of all of this stuff, and Tom's yet to find out. But once you have kids, you get a whole nother perspective of trying hard, like, because it's not just about you anymore. You're like, man, I've got to make this work, or I don't want to let them down. And so I guess for you to have that moment, I mean, I felt really proud for you, and stoked for you, and all of that stuff. But then you see with the kids, it's like, man, that's unreal to think we came from trying to teach ourselves to rollerblade,
Exactly,
down Homewood Ave or whatever it was called, to you, I say finally. I don't mean finally, but you getting that, getting that success was, and being a small part of the piece of that to, be like, man, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And then you get a call up. Well, so Tommy will take over from here and start talking about the Team New Zealand stuff.
Yeah, well, how did that come about? That's probably the first question.
Yeah, I got a call up. I got a phone call from a friend, Nick Gill, who's the All Black strength and conditioning coach. Mm-hmm. He was in the Koru lounge about to fly to South Africa with the All Blacks, and he was on a little bit of a recruitment drive, I suppose, for people to trial for Emirates Team New Zealand. It was an unusual thing that they were looking for. They needed big humans that could push power on a bike, and most of the people we think of that are good cyclists are not big humans.
Yep.
And correct. A lot of big humans we think of are not good cyclists. Yep. So I think they also knew that if they advertised publicly, that half the country would show up. So for some reason, he thought I was worthy of a phone call. And it's just one of those, there's only a few moments in your life that you realise are just like big moments. And that was a big moment, kind of surreal, really. I remember getting off the phone and being like, wow, did that really just happen? And all it was, hey, this is what we're thinking. Yeah. We are probably going to use leg power to drive the next America's Cup. Yeah. We think you'd be a good option. Would you be interested in trialling? And then he sort of hung up the phone and flew to South Africa. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Before that, it was the arms, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like the grinders.
They had used Cyclors in Bermuda in 2017, but it was only Team New Zealand that brought Cyclors to that cup and surprised the world, basically. Won the cup. And then for the next cup in Auckland 2021, they'd gone back to arm grinders. So Barcelona was the first time they openly used Cyclors across the event for every team.
It's crazy. Makes a lot more sense, right?
It does.
You can generate a lot more power through your legs than your arms. So yeah, you get the call up, and then how quickly after that does the testing come around? Did he give you a time frame of and what you had to get yourself ready for, or was it just we need to see what you can do on a bike? Yeah,
it wasn't a huge timeline. It might have been 12 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much about what was involved. And in fairness, I don't think Nick Gilly knew much either. I think they were sort of trying to understand that in those 12 weeks themselves. I was a little bit blind to it. I had to learn what a watt bike was and how to ride one. I'd never ridden one really before. But I was also still doing a bit of multisport. So I think I had the Motu Challenge in the Bay of Plenty in the mix as well. And somewhere along the way, I actually had a big bike crash, knocked myself unconscious and lost a week of training. So it was a very condensed build into the trial. And the trial took place before Christmas at the end of 2022. And a month after that, they made the phone calls to let us know who was part of it. That was a long month, actually, waiting to find out.
Yeah. So testing, this is what I'm interested in. First of all, what is the test? And secondly, what are the requirements?
Yeah, they did 4 tests. They didn't really know what type of fitness they needed for the boat because they hadn't had time to work systems for the boat. So they did a 6-second max sprint. I don't know if I was dead last, but I would have been pretty close to dead last across the 20 trialists. A 30-second sprint, which was just disgusting. I think that's the longest 30 seconds of my life. In fact, that was probably, for me, the hardest of the 4 tests. They had a 20-minute maximal power test, which is where I did better. And then they also had what they thought might be a bit of a race simulation. As it turns out, it wasn't quite on the mark, but at the time it was a 10-second sprint every minute for 25 minutes. So they were probably just trying to paint a bit of a picture of what was under the hood for each athlete.
Yeah. So did they have like how would you say it? Did they have a number in mind that they wanted people to reach that was like, oh, okay, if you're under 400 watts or whatever, then no, you're not in?
They didn't, but there was a bit of chat. I sort of tried to stay out of the chat because I didn't find it useful to know what other people were doing. But I mean, I for my 20-minute test, I was sort of mid 400 watts, which was as good as I could have given at the time, and I was proud of that. But I didn't know how that stood against other athletes.
And I guess for people listening, like that's a serious amount of watts. But obviously, with the power to weight in cycling, and then it's all just absolute power, isn't it? On the Cyclo. Yeah. So
big difference, eh?
There's a bit. You need a big man that can push some serious numbers, but then also be fit enough to hold that.
Yeah.
And you say you weren't the best at the 6 and the 30. Was that more because there were sprint cyclists that were there, and obviously they'd be pretty well up there in that kind of sense? But then how does it really even out on the boat? Like, you were obviously got the endurance background, so you're probably going to be a lot more aerobically strong and can hold it longer. Are there different areas, say, in the boat where they come into play more than others?
Yeah, a little bit. And we did have, like our main race crew, by the time the cup rolled around, was probably a bit 50-50. We had Hamish Bond and myself, who was sort of more the aerobic athlete. Yeah. And then we had guys like Louis Crosby, Cam Webster, Marius van der Poel, who are they're 100-kilo guys that can push way more watts than Bondy and I. So they probably did sort of distribute those qualities across the 4 of us like that. But also it's sort of, I was just lucky. It played into my hands a little bit because the more the boat sort of systems developed over time, the more it favoured an aerobic kind of a rider. So the big power sprints became less useful on the boat, and the ability to hold steady power became more useful.
Yeah. It's an interesting...
it's unbelievable science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like at 70k an hour up on the falls, fanging it?
Oh,
scary as shit.
Bit of an adrenaline rush. You're probably, luckily, really, you're not that aware of what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
You've got your head down, and there was a lot to think about. We had screens in front of us that gave us information. We're also wired up to the comms. We could hear the sailors talk. You can feel different torques through the pedals because you're driving the hydraulics. So there was enough to hold our attention that very seldom did we, or certainly I didn't have time to sort of contemplate the fact that if we nosedive right now, it could turn pretty ugly. We didn't capsize, but we certainly came close a few times. And I mean, when you're fully clipped in a small space, the idea of a capsize wasn't that appealing. We had a spare air and we had a knife available if we got into a bit of trouble upside down.
That's crazy.
Because if you did capsize, you had that whole mainsail that would basically, the lights would go out pretty quickly. But for there the other difference between the power group and the sailing crew is their heart rates are probably at 90 or 100 and ours are at 170, 180. So we're going to suck through that spare air a lot quicker than they are.
Yeah.
So that was sort of probably in the back of our mind, but it just really couldn't be forefront because we had enough other things capturing our attention, luckily.
And what does the process look like, kind of from selection through to getting to? Sorry, I've stolen Tom's question because now I'm just really interested. I guess you find yourself with these group of athletes that you've probably had not much to do with, maybe a little bit,
No,
here
I
and
didn't
there.
know any of them.
And then I guess you get a training program from Gilly or whoever's doing your stuff. What is that sort of 2 years? 80 months?
Yeah,
80 months, yeah. What does that look like for you personally and with the family and stuff?
Yeah, it was a busy couple of years. I was still able to be Wanaka based, but I'd travel to Auckland quite a lot, especially for sailing blocks and things like that. So I'm forever grateful to the team for allowing me to do that and not have to uproot my family. The guys in the team, the Cyclors, there were 9 of us, all from sort of different backgrounds. There was some sailors, there was some military. There was a military guy from special services sort of background. There were rowers like Bondi and Cam. There were cyclists, Simon van Velthoven, Louis Crosby. And then there was a multisporter and didn't know any of them. I mean, if I had a birthday party or a wedding or something tomorrow, they would all be on my invitation list. They've become super tight mates. And that was a huge highlight for me. I mean, I had done adventure racing and I would consider people like Simone really good friends and we'd been through so much together, but this was my first real experience of a full professional team environment. And the wider team too, there's 150 people in Emirates Team New Zealand. So amazing group of people. They've, last year won their 3rd America's Cup, and so they're very good at what they do, but they're also just an amazing collection of human beings. So huge highlight, and those 18 months will luckily be a huge part of my career now as I reflect. And it's funny how we talked about the coast-to-coast finish line and immediately our attention turned to Flynn and Matilda and that hug on the finish. And when I think about the America's Cup, same thing, I think about my teammates and it's always the people, that you share these experiences with. And yeah, amazing group of people.
Whereas, you go, Tom, there's a few more questions.
I was just going to say, did that kind of, because Oska and I have obviously both been a part of team sports early on in the career, did that kind of feel not a missing piece, but you were so high up in your rugby stuff and then to go away from a massive group for a long time, and multisport's pretty lonely at times, and then going back into a team, how'd that test you?
I just remember being so excited because I am such a curious person and I love to learn and lean into people that can teach me things. And we were there predominantly to be cyclists on the boat. So a big part of our job description was lifting weights in the gym and riding our bikes. But we were also there to help out around the boat shed. We joke about it, emptying rubbish bins, sweeping floors, but we were doing exactly those things, and we were appreciated for doing them because the boat crew have such important jobs that if they're turning to put something in the bin and it's overflowing, it felt like we were contributing or at least giving back, because we sort of get the glory. We're on the boat and we look like we're so important. As cyclors, we're such a small piece of the puzzle, and there's people in that boat shed that are so much more critical to the success of that team. So if I can go and empty their rubbish bins, I'm bloody going to go and do it, because it just feels like you're giving something back to the people that help make you look good in the limelight on race day.
Yeah. It was kind of a cool full circle moment when you think about it, really, because same kind of stuff would happen in rugby sheds and at trainings and stuff, like bringing the balls in, sweeping the floors, like ripping the pads off the posts kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing to go full circle with that.
They were also like, I could empty rubbish bins and sweep floors because I was pretty qualified to do it. But there were other jobs I wasn't qualified to do that I got to do. Yeah. And I did learn heaps of stuff, how to use different power tools I'd never heard of. And even just people would take the time. I'd go into the hydraulics department and just ask some questions because I was curious about all the things that I was powering on the boat that I didn't really understand. And these guys would just talk me through it. Yeah. And it was an incredible sense of unity within the team.
The curiosity is a cool piece. I think that's kind of been a theme throughout. And I guess I'm kind of in that realm at the moment, like switching sports and seeing how there's so much that can go on with a bike per se in a triathlon, like how aerodynamically can you get and the fueling and everything. That would have been a cool part of the job, seeing the designs and how the boats are made and what they're looking at and what contributes to that.
Yeah.
It's just
definitely.
It's a pretty awesome full circle job.
There was a moment during the campaign where and people might remember, they might not, but we dropped the boat. The crane dropped our boat and it broke it. And we thought the campaign was over.
Yeah.
And to me, it was almost a blessing in disguise because it actually showcased to the world how critical that boat building crew are and were, because our whole campaign sat in the balance and it was on them to rescue us.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what they did. 48 hours later, we were sailing again.
It's ridiculous.
So as stressful as it was at the time, I think, man, that was cool because it actually, it showed the world just how important those other people in the team really are.
The guys you don't normally see.
No,
Exactly.
so I'm just wondering why it's taken Tommy 3 weeks to get a seat post for his giant bike.
Mate,
They can fix an America's Cup bike in 48 hours.
It's funny you say that because I broke the seat post on my giant bike in Barcelona riding down a curb, carbon seat post, and I'm with my teammate and I'm devastated because I'm like, it's a unique shape. It's only made by Giant.
Yeah.
Cycling is my job. The cup's coming out. What am I going to do? And I'm saying all these things and my teammate Cam's looking at me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry, are you telling me you need a carbon repair job done on your seat post? And I still haven't clicked. I'm like, yeah, mate, like, how am I going to get it? I don't even know where Giant are based. He's like, here's an idea. Take a 6-pack of Crafties into the boat crew, which is what I did. And 24 hours later, and I remember the guy's named Spider. He's basically a wizard with anything composite. And he gives me back my seat post and it's fixed and he's excited about his 6 Crafties I've brought him in. And he apologises and he says, I'm really sorry because the repair job I've done is going to make the seat post feel a lot stiffer. Right. And if you're a cyclist, stiffness, you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
He actually upgraded the seat post for me.
This is why I wish I had this kind of stuff on my hands. Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool environment to be in by the sounds of it. Yeah. So what do we... actually, the next question is, what's next? That's a really broad question, but...
Yeah, it's going to be a short answer because I don't really know. I'm coaching my stable of multisporters, triathletes, that sort of thing. And I mean, there could be another America's Cup, but that sport just changes so quickly that you just don't plan on that being the case. So at this stage, I'm basically retired from sport. I have said that a few times in the past, but if that turns out to be the case,
I think if a phone call comes in, it'll probably change real quick.
It's a bit of a niche skill set, the old so I did a mid 400s 20-minute power, and I added probably another 50 watts with 10 kilos of extra body weight. Proud to sort of make the 500 club for 20 minutes, which when you're a cyclor, it's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. But then when you step out of being a cyclor and you go, righto, world, who needs me? I can do 500 watts for 20 minutes. There's not very many people that put their hands up.
Not unless they're going to make washing machines on back of bikes. Like, so you can spin the washing machine.
Unless you're like 65 kgs that can bike up a hill.
So I asked your dad, what was it like seeing him help win the America's Cup? It was the last question I asked him, actually. And then we're going to go back to the family stuff. But he said an overwhelming pride and also an awareness of what it would mean to Dougal having the success after all the work he had put in, and again, plus his loyalty to the team. Did it feel a little bit like, not that the previous 15 years was not worth it, but did it kind of feel like at that moment, everything that I've done leading to that led me to this big global world stage, one of the biggest sports in the world? I'm not trying to project words in your mouth, but did you reflect on that?
Oh, yeah. And as I say, I think I'm retired, and if I am, I think that my last day as a professional athlete was lifting the America's Cup, and that's a pretty cool way to...
Fuck, I'll be signing off too.
See you later.
Yeah. But it was a huge relief more than anything, because as I say, there are 150 people that put their lives more or less on hold to try and win their country the America's Cup, and you just hope that you can do your small part well, and if everyone does their small part well, there's such a good team that will win the America's Cup. And my part was very small, but I managed to do it, and we won the cup. So I just remember feeling huge relief for the whole team. But also, there's a photo of me, and again, photos, I just love photos, but there's a photo of me hugging Matilda. She's jumped into my arms and I'm giving her this big hug, and I think it might even be my profile photo on Facebook. But we had just won the cup. We'd sailed back into the harbour. I don't know, but I'm guessing like tens of thousands of people. Suddenly there's all these Kiwis. You're like, where did you all come from? And I remember climbing off the boat and you're sort of hugging a few teammates, but you're really, like I was basically like, I knew roughly where Matilda would be standing. And there were fences and there was security and all these things. But anyway, all of a sudden she just pops out of nowhere and she's sprinting at me. And there's this photo and I'm hugging her. And I think that, again, if this is me signing off as an athlete, you get to hold up some trophies along the way, but that was just me hugging my daughter, and it was such a cool moment because, again, what do you want to show your kids? You just want to show them that you're willing to take a risk, work really hard. You're never guaranteed of success, but in that moment we'd had exactly that, and it was just the two of us. There were, as I say, people everywhere, but I wouldn't have known that at that time.
So that brings us really nice little segue into, I guess, your kids. What was that like, having them, bringing them along? I guess, speaking from my own experience, there was a way things happened, and then you go through this amazing experience of watching your partner give birth, and then you have a child, and then nothing is ever the same.
No.
And you have this thing that you think of before you think of yourself. And as professional sports people, we often have to think of ourselves first. Yep. It's a really hard thing.
Yep.
And I don't know if many people, I don't know if you struggle with it. I'm not going to project that onto you, but I definitely struggle with it. How often we have to put ourselves first. What was that first like, when your little man's born? How do you go about reintegrating yourself into professional sport?
It was a big, as you say, it changes everything in a moment. And I remember there was like a transition period where me training or going away and racing felt very selfish. And then somewhere along the way, I think maybe it was a conversation with someone or maybe just a moment of enlightenment or something where I realized that it was the opposite of selfish. It was all the things I was showing to my children was actually me giving them so much. And so fairly early on with that realization, I think I felt like I could have my cake and eat it too in a way, because I could be away training, working hard towards things, achieving things. Yes, it meant that I had less time with the kids, but in the bigger picture, it was me hopefully demonstrating all these qualities that as a father you can only hope to showcase to your children. I also got to take them places. They were in Barcelona for the America's Cup. We had 2 years in a row where they spent a few months living in a different city in Europe. And, when you live in Wanaka, the kids are really lucky to live in Wanaka, but it's a bubble. And so these are just experiences that you just can't put a price on these things, eh? So as a parent, I'm so proud that my sport has given me the opportunity to give my children some experiences I don't think they could have had if it wasn't for my sport.
Nice. That's pretty well said.
Yeah.
So I asked your friend Bob a couple of questions, and he said lots of the same stuff that your dad said. So I said the bits from your dad. But just on the family bit, and he's I'm going to paraphrase slightly because he said some other stuff before it, but he said, Dougal is the dad we all wish we had. How does that make you feel?
Probably a little bit emotional.
Made me feel emotional when Took me an hour and a half, but I got him.
Yeah. I mean, it's all that's really mattered to me since becoming a parent, really. You know, like I would, if for some reason it didn't seem like the best thing for my children for me to become part of Emirates Team New Zealand, that would have been an easy decision. I wouldn't have been part of Emirates Team New Zealand. I just, since becoming a parent, that's been my moral compass, I suppose. Do things that are best for your kids. And so hopefully that's exactly what I'm doing and continue to do. But thanks, Bob.
Yeah, knowing Bob and knowing where that comes from, I think you've probably done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You've nailed that.
Surely he said some mean things.
Well, I mean, we can go ad lib if you want. No, he didn't say anything bad. He just said you can't rollerblade, but we've kind of been there.
He told me. There's a good photo on the internet, I think, of Bob towing Braden Curry and me.
Yeah, no. And I mean, again, it's that selflessness and commitment to the sport around, you know, making sure that if people needed gear, you'd be given it out, even if it was detriment to your own sort of getting ready for an event. You'd be the first one to hand out a kayak, ski thing or whatever it's called, or a helmet, or a bike or someone had broken, or you'd be the first person to say, "Oh yeah, take mine," even if it meant that you had to butcher some duct tape on one that was broken. That was sort of his main feedback. But we did have some questions from Instagram. Tommy, do you want to ask those, and then we'll land this plane?
Yeah. So the first one we had was actually from your mate Cam Webster. And it's just, it sounds like a typical question to ask from a mate like this, but who was his favourite Emirates Team New Zealand teammate?
Yeah. Nice.
A spider.
Clearly.
The guy who fixes the seat post.
Cam, I mean, Cam and I, we didn't know each other, but we bonded very quickly because we were a couple of bolters. We were basically, there were only 4 people that became cyclors that weren't already part of the Emirates Team New Zealand outfit. Yeah. So that was Louis Crosby, Cam, myself, and Hamish Bond. Yeah. And I remember, I think first day on the job, sat on the watt bike next to Cam, and we just went there. We went deep. And I've had a bit of a crappy sort of 12 months. I've been through a separation and things, and Cam's just, he's just a special human being. Yeah. So to answer your question, Cam, my favourite teammate's probably Simon Van Vel.
That's a great answer.
Next we had, I don't actually know who it was from, but someone asked the best advice for coast to coast in one sentence. It's probably a bit of a hard one. But
take a big deep breath and try and snap 6 together.
It's probably not specific to the coast to coast itself. Yep. But it can be, and that is just fall in love with the process, the journey. I coach coast-to-coast athletes who enter the coast-to-coast because the idea of race day appeals, but the idea of everything it takes to get there maybe appeals less so. Yep. That's a really tricky journey to navigate. The ones that enter the coast-to-coast with an understanding of what's going to be involved, that's an amazing experience to be part of. So put your thoughts, your attention, and your love into the process of getting to the coast to coast.
I think it just reigns true on a lot of endurance sports, really, don't you? You have to put in a lot of time and effort. Someone had asked the best piece of advice you got from Richie Goat.
Richie the Goat. Talk about McCaw, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Best piece of advice. Well, maybe it's less advice as it is just insight into his mentality, but he would just often shift perspective. So whenever something felt tough, he would always remind us that there's a lot harder things out there. And I'll never forget that, because you think you've got it pretty bad at 3 a.m. during the God Zone, but there's bigger problems in the world. And they say comparison's the thief of joy, but I think when you compare down, it can be a real perspective shift. Yeah, he was very good at that.
Does that kind of, when you do that in an event like God Zone, does that just lift a lot of weight off your shoulders and you feel like you can move a bit easier?
It did, It had an instant effect at times, and he just knew when to say it too.
Yeah, I think that's why he was
just like
probably
he's an All Black captain.
A great captain, yeah.
Bro, you know.
And lastly, someone had asked, will there be another Coast to Coast?
Not with the intent being to win the race.
Yeah.
I don't have any immediate intention to do the race, but if my son or my daughter want to do it with Dad in a tandem team, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
Or if there's a charity or something that I can be involved with. I love the race.
Yeah.
It's given me so much, and so will I be involved in the race in the future? Probably. But I'm very happy and content not to go back with any sort of competitive aspirations.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will look forward to that day. So,
yeah. So I'm going to attempt to land us somehow by bringing this whole thing together. I'm starting to run out of glycogen. So
sounds like you're approaching Wellington.
Yeah, Wellington Airport. And I, as we've been sitting there, I've been trying to figure out what I wanted to say, because I try not to go into the closing statement having already pre-prepared something, because I'd like to see how we get on and the things that the person says and how those things make me feel. So the first thing I'd like to say is thank you. Not just for sitting here with Tom and I for the last 90 minutes, but thank you for showing a group of us that you can be clear in determination and precise in execution about what you want to do, but also have unbelievable compassion for the people in and around even your competitors. I asked your dad what he loves most about you, and I might get emotional reading this out, so just bear with me. He is the real deal. Deeply reflective and compassionate. We do not recall on any occasion when Dougal has spoken of his accomplishments where he has not acknowledged and praised others for the part they have played in his success. Dougal's sense of empathy has endeared him to so many family, friends, fellow sports people. We think of occasions like Coast to Coast events, for example, where he has sacrificed his own position to assist others in difficulty. So there's a couple of words in there that reflective. I think this 90-minute chat has been really reflective. We should catch up more often. I 100% agree with the compassion that you show to all of us, even a young 20-year-old me, the kids at the pool when you're lifeguarding, having a chat, eating your creamy rice and your banana because you had to roll in 5 minutes before you started your shift. And the time that you give even anyone who's willing to ask a question and listen to the advice. So I think when I look back on, the last 15 years nearly of knowing you, I think of someone who was always willing to give someone else a hand up and make sure that they had all the tools they needed to be successful, and then bring everyone into your success and show, as a leader, a way to go forwards. Tom, you got anything to add?
Oh, no, it's been a bloody... Again, it's like Caden, it's been insightful. And I think there's a lot of people that hopefully will listen and get a lot out of it, not just in a sports sense, but just in life in general. So, yeah, thank you very much for coming on. It's been awesome.
Have you got anything you want to add, Dougie, before we...
Oh, I'd like to buy those shoes that I've but no, thanks guys. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the research you did leading into it. I think Dad should probably maybe buy 2 pairs of shoes a year.
Get a discount on 1 pair.
Yeah. But no, thank you. It's a cool opportunity to reflect and tell a bit of the story. And it's been a hell of a ride. And it's thanks to people like yourselves that I get to tell it and hopefully benefit 1 or 2 people along the way. So
100%, bro. All right, we may or may not see you back at the Coast to Coast, but we'll sure as shit see you on a bike.
Sounds good.
Yeah.